cyber psychology is a really broad area. It covers everything from things like virtual reality to help with psychological problems and mental health issues like treatments of anxiety disorders, to how we use social media, to AI, to how we shop online, to how we communicate with other people online, to online dating. Like, it's extremely broad. And it's basically everything to do with how we interact with other people through technology, how we interact with technology ourselves, the effects it has on how we think and behave, and so on. So it's very, very broad and very interesting and always changing.
And it's pervasive because it's in literally all aspects of our
Everything.
lives. It's in
Yeah.
everything and it's everywhere. And AI has become such a huge part of how we do things now. And it sort of just exploded over the last, 12 to 18 months. And, even my son who's 13 is now using some elements of it in his workflow. And it's just very interesting. We are hopefully going to chat about three things if time allows. Screen time in young children, gaming, and also children and social media. These three big things have been quite topical over the last while. I think we have to accept the reality that that is how young people are communicating right now. And I think personally that it was somewhat of a lifesaver during times like COVID, for example, when everybody was isolated and there was very little face-to-face social interaction, yet being able to interact via a screen, via gaming, and we'll talk about that in a second, I think actually helped manage mental health, during that.
Yeah.
Now, there's no denying that there are negative aspects to screen use,
Yeah.
especially if it replaces other forms of interaction between the parent and the child.
Yeah.
And when we actually looked at a study that was published recently that looked at the relationship between screen exposure over the first 36 months and the child's ability to communicate, there was a correlation. The longer screen time there was, the less talkative or communicative the child was. But when he actually adjusted for all the other potential confounders, such as social circumstances, the duration that the parents were actually talking to their child, the presence of other siblings, the educational attainment of the parents, the impact of screens on language development almost disappeared.
Yeah.
Which to me says that it's not particularly the screen time, but it's everything else that is not being done
Yeah.
when a child is on screens. And you can almost mitigate the effect of screen exposure if everything else is done correctly.
Yeah. I think often or sometimes screen time is more a symptom of certain circumstances rather than the cause of anything, right? We have no indication from the studies the good quality recent studies that are out there that screen time is causing problems for anyone. We don't really have studies to actually measure cause and effect. What I would say to parents, that what we do know from the research is that authoritarian parenting around screen time is counterproductive. So if you try to set very strict limits or say you can't have a phone at all, first of all, kids will find a way. But when they run into problems, they won't tell you about it. And if they're not telling you about it, that is far more damaging to them than being able to come to their parent and say, look, I know I wasn't supposed to be doing this, but I did. And I saw this thing and it was awful and I'm quite upset about it. And you can help them.
Now, most games are online. Most games involve, meeting with friends, sometimes strangers, and playing alongside them virtually in a team or something like that. So I think the issue with me growing up was that my parents were worried about me getting addicted to video games. But now there's a couple of other concerns, and that includes not just addiction, but also, being exposed to potential dangers online. And the big one that we always worry about is, pedophiles
Yeah.
that are trying to groom and target children. And, you could, I suppose, set up some rules and regulations and empower the children to recognize things, because as you said, you have to prepare them for the real life, and this is real life. So how do we address this? Let's talk about addiction first.
Okay. So this is a really complex one because the American Psychological Association, they have their diagnostic and statistical manual for mental health disorders, and they've put gaming disorder into it as not as a disorder, but as an area that needs more research and better quality research to see if there is an issue. But it looks like maybe there's an issue. A lot of people take that to mean we're addicted to video games. The the World Health Organization has also put it in as a disorder. And yet, during COVID, they were recommending people play video games with their friends and family as a way to create social connection in a safe way.
And just on that, my son was playing games with his cousins who were in Kuwait, and also at the same time with his cousins that were in Lucan.
Yes.
And it was actually lovely because he was able to bridge the two sort of groups of friends, and they all ended up playing together.
Yeah.
And when they first met for the first time last summer, it was as if they've known each other for so long. And I thought that that was such a nice aspect of online gaming when it's done right.
It's absolutely lovely. And it is extremely common. So that is not an outlier. Most kids and most adults who play games play it in a very, very social way now. And they find that it increases their social connection, their belongingness. It increases their need for connection, or it satisfies their need for connection. The more vulnerable kids on social media and gaming and other places are kids who don't have family or guardian support and someone to talk to, who haven't got people to teach them the skills, and who maybe have learning disabilities or intellectual disabilities. They are much more at risk than most kids. And so that requires like more supervision, more conversations, making sure they're okay, going in and checking their chat logs, listening in on their things when they're younger anyway, to make sure that they understand what's happening, can identify problems. But with all of these things, it's about having conversations about what is appropriate, what isn't, what to do if you're unsure, who to come talk to, whether to get out of a chat right away, what you can ignore safely and what you shouldn't ignore at all. And having those conversations about those things. But teaching kids that, like, if you can't see someone, no matter what they're presenting as online, that you don't know that that's true. You know, it's very easy to manipulate who you are online. And you can talk to them about, you know, a lot of games you set up avatars and stuff. You can talk to them about how easy it is for them to create any kind of avatar they want of themselves online. And then think about how other people could do the same. It could be anybody. You know, it could be somebody's granny, it could be somebody else, and anyone can create whatever they want. So I think, again, a lot of this comes back to having conversations, which is great for the parents who are very involved. I think like a lot of what I talk about is reassuring parents that their kids are probably fine, but here's what to do to avoid big problems. It's the kids who don't have that relationship with their parents that I'd be most concerned about. They're the most vulnerable.
Yeah, so the overarching theme really is open communication with
Really
your
is.
kids and paying interest in what they're doing and not dismissing it
Yeah.
as something useless.
Yeah.
I finally want to talk about social media because again, I feel that kids are quite vulnerable to what they see on social media, and even my daughter's now 15, 16. I worry about her having an Instagram account, for example, worry about what she may see, what she may be influenced by in terms of, I don't know, diet, looks. They're the typical things that I think parents worry about.
Yeah. And understandably, yeah.
And she does have a Snapchat account that is set to private, meaning that she can only converse with her friends. And I think we have to acknowledge that, you know, I can't remember the last time my daughter phoned me on my actual landline. I either get a call through Snapchat or a call through WhatsApp.